Greetings everyone, this is Jed Shlackman. I'm a holistic counselor as well as an energy healer. And for this video I want to speak about the subject of unlearning. Most of us are familiar with the concept or idea of learning, of acquiring knowledge or skills. There is also an idea that people have spoken about called unlearning, and unlearning applies in a sense letting go of things you have previously learned. So accepting that things you've learned in the past may not be accurate or relevant, and it's time to let go of those pieces of information or things that you've learned so that you'll have space in your consciousness to replace that past learning with some new or improved form of learning that will better suit you in your life now, or will align you more with truth or accurate understanding of things. This is really something that we've all done at different times in our life, that we're really doing on an ongoing basis, whether we are conscious of it or not. So we're all in some way continually learning and unlearning as our state of understanding, as our skills and knowledge evolve over time. You can consider some pretty simple examples to see how this process happens. Let's suppose that you grow up in a particular family or culture where people interact socially in a certain way. So there's certain social customs, certain ways of relating to one another. It could be something just as simple as when you greet a person, it's expected that you shake their hand. So in that particular context, you learn that particular skill, that way of interacting with your environment. And for a while that's what you're doing, and it's functional. It serves its purpose for you to be a part of that particular society or community. However, later on you might move to some other place, some other culture or country, and in this other environment that you're coming into, there may be a custom where you're not supposed to shake someone's hand when you meet them. Instead, perhaps you're supposed to bow in front of them or something like that. So if you were to hold on to the old style of relating that you learned and use that in this new environment, you might upset the people around you. They might reject you for breaking their cultural norm or custom. So you would have to be able to let go of your attachment to that old habit you had, that old way of acting, so that you can learn a new way to interact with people that will be helpful for your social connections or communications in the place where you're now living. This happens with many things in life where there's something we learned that may have served a purpose for the time or place where we learned it, and then later on in life those circumstances have changed and we need to let go of what we previously learned so we can be open to learn something new or different that will serve us in the present time, since things are continuing to change and evolve in our lives. This is also the case with things that we're learning in terms of skills or academics, in particular professions or areas of study. You might learn a method or technique that's seemingly useful in your job, but then at some other point in time that becomes outdated, or something better comes along that will serve you better, that will be more efficient or more functional, And if you held on to what you had previously learned and kept doing that, you'll be kind of superseded by people who have newer or better understanding. So it would have a negative impact on your life if you're too attached to what you had previously learned. It's common in our current society for people that are not open to learning new technologies for them to be displaced because they're not keeping up with what's current, with what's being used in the modern era that they're now having to encounter. Sometimes we're taught things in the past that are completely wrong or inaccurate. Sometimes it's unintentionally. Sometimes we're taught those things intentionally by someone. And it's helpful to be open to that possibility that we've been given inaccurate, incomplete, or incorrect information. This could apply to things in science, in history, in medicine, really in any field of study. So if we want to grow and evolve, if we want to be wiser, then we need to be willing to consider that not everything we thought we knew before is actually true. So to be willing to question your own existing understanding or knowledge base, to realize that we are exposed to things that are not necessarily accurate. The people teaching us something might believe they're teaching us something accurate, but just because they believe it doesn't mean it's necessarily true or accurate. They may have received inaccurate information from how they were taught. So we can be open to learning, to letting go of our attachment to our previous learning, and this is what we can call a process of unlearning. So unlearning doesn't necessarily mean that you're erasing from your consciousness what you previously were taught. It's just letting go of your attachment to it, realizing that some of the things we learned in the past may be accurate and relevant, some of them might not, and that gives us the opening to learn new things, to expand our field of awareness, our information. We might study something new that gives us a more full picture of a topic. There might be new resources, new technologies, new ways of gathering information that add to our understanding of a topic. And there may also be exposures about how information or knowledge per se that was taught to us previously was somehow tainted, was somehow corrupted, and as a result of that we realize that we need to learn something new or different that will be more accurate. We've all gone through different forms of training and schooling, different institutions of education, and often we're just absorbing that information. We're trying to succeed in a sense in our studies, in our grading system that's provided toward us in that sense. So if you want to be a good student and achieve, so to speak, you often have to just kind of unquestioningly absorb what you're taught and repeat, reflect that back, show that you've memorized that information or that skill that you were taught. But that's not giving you wisdom, it's just giving you an information base that you're able to remember or to act upon. You're pleasing your teachers. You may be earning a good grade for being able to show that you've learned what they taught you. But there's always the potential for the student to gain more knowledge or understanding than the teacher, for the student to become wiser, to transcend any errors or mistakes that the teacher may be presenting. So if you only want to repeat to be kind of a replica of what your teacher is presenting, you're putting a limitation upon yourself. You'll end up repeating any mistakes or errors that they've been embodying in what they're presenting. So be open to going beyond what you're taught by any teacher, by any institution. We all have access to a lot more wisdom than we might give ourselves credit for. So besides just going through some formal training or formal education system, we can seek knowledge and skills beyond that. We can use our own ability to observe, to read and study, to test, to experiment. We can do all of those things to expand our own awareness. We might, for example, be an athlete who develops a particular skill or way of performing in that sport that you're playing, and you might have been trained by a coach to do things a certain way, and that might work for a certain time or a certain stage of your career in that sport. But then over time, other people might develop even better skills or better approaches to the technique of that sport. And if you're not willing to try learning new things, they will surpass you. They'll end up outperforming you if you were overly attached to what you were originally trained in or originally learned. We can learn new things about health, about history, about science and technology, about psychology and social relationships. There are so many areas in life where we do have things that it would be useful for us to unlearn so that we can learn something greater or something more accurate and relevant to us. I encourage each of you to consider some things in your life that you have learned after unlearning something previous, ways in which you have grown and evolved, in which you've realized things that you had learned in the past were not accurate or not beneficial for you, that it was time to let those things go and to not be ashamed that you had learned those things and used those things before. They may have seemed useful or appropriate to bring into your life when you originally encountered them. So you don't want to criticize yourself for having done that. It's all just part of life that we continue to evolve. So accept that it's okay to unlearn, to release old habits, old patterns, old belief systems. There's nothing bad or wrong with you for feeling that you need to do that. If you are overly resistant to letting those things go, overly rigid and not willing to unlearn, to relearn, etc., then you're actually going to create stagnation in your life, in your personal growth. So have a certain amount of openness and flexibility, a certain amount of willingness to unlearn, to release things that may have previously seemed true to you, but now with new information, new experiences, new resources, you're discovering are not really true are not really useful anymore. This is something that would benefit all of us to have that flexibility. I appreciate each of you for taking your time to watch this video. And for those that are interested in holistic health and personal development and well-being, I invite you to visit my website, which is phinsights.com. That's phinsights.com. For now, I wish everyone a wonderful day. Namaste.